If you really check how much money you're spending on ultra-processed foods, you're probably spending more because you need to eat more of it to be satisfied. Most people think that they need to eat close to nothing in order to lose weight. So people are eating anything from 1,000 calories to 1,200 and weighing 120 kilos and expecting to lose weight. It's crazy that even medical professionals still have that mentality. People tend to think that they shouldn't be eating protein because meat and chicken and eggs and things like that are bad for you. That's a common misconception. Eating disorders are things that exist in a spectrum. So disorder eating is when you start expressing behaviors of caring too much about what you put in your body, and it can go all the way to the eating disorder, which is the thing that has a diagnosis. In reality, gut health is whole body health and mental health as well. When people are fixated on the weight and they just want the magical meal plan that will make them lose weight without changing anything.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Welcome, my friends, to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Drew Grissell from Primal Wellness Coaching. Today, I am talking to Gaby Mora. Gaby is an accredited practicing dietitian, an accredited sports dietitian, and a certified Krav Maga instructor like yours truly. And she has a unique background that combines sciences, movement, and a deep understanding of the human body. Gaby's interests also include things like strength training, combat sports, and meditation, reflecting a well-rounded and holistic view of what it means to live well and perform at your best. Gaby's originally from Peru and is now based in Australia, where she focuses on personalized nutrition and daily movement to support everything from gut and metabolic health to sports performance and autoimmune conditions. Gaby, it is very nice to see you again. Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you, Drew. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's been 5 or so months since last we met.
Hope your back is better.
Yeah. Yeah. My back is wonderful. Thank you. I got my cold plunge right over there in the corner. It helps a lot. I have a inversion table in the other corner that also helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. We'll jump right into some background there for the listeners. So I met Gaby in person for the first time in Australia in November of last year. We were both attending a Krav Maga instructor course in Sydney. We're both certified under Krav Maga Israel and Ron Engelman. And yeah, about 5 or 6 hours into the first day of a 7-day course, I threw out my low back and it was absolutely horrible.
Mm-hmm. But you managed to do the whole course, which is like really, really good, because most people who get injured just drop out completely. But
not gonna lie, I didn't know how it was going to work. You know, when I hobbled, I found an acupuncturist and hobbled to the acupuncturist after class that day. And I hobbled back to my hotel room and it was horrible. It was excruciating. I hobbled to the chemist and picked up some anti-inflammatories and some I forget, some like
Voltaren or something.
Yeah, Voltaren cream. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was just terrible. And I woke up the next morning and I still felt terrible, but I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw on my clothes anyway and hobble back to the studio and maybe I'll just watch and take notes. But I guess hobbling across Sydney warmed me up enough that I was able to attempt to jump in, and yeah, I just kind of made it work.
Yeah.
But that's not why we're here today. But that was special memories. That was special memories. And I do want to say, I recall, because you're a black belt. And I was over there and I was watching you and the other advanced students kind of in the little nook in the studio there, like doing all the fun stuff. And my back was still killing me. And I was extremely envious. I really wanted to jump in there and do the fun stuff with you guys instead of just, getting choked over and over and over and over.
Uh-huh.
Fortunately, yeah, I got warmed up enough that I was eventually able to jump in with you guys. And get obliterated by all of you. But it's good. It's good
always,
time.
always fun to do advanced stuff with the boys.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So you are a dietitian and a Krav Maga instructor, but we're
Mhm.
here because I want to talk about dietitian stuff mostly.
Mhm.
But I'm curious about some crossover stuff. But I guess just tell me. So as a dietitian, what do you have a particular like specialty or focus that people would come to you for, like a niche?
Well, I'm a dietitian, but also a sports dietitian. So here in
Okay.
Australia, there are like two different certifications that you need to be a dietitian first, and then you can become a sports dietitian as well. So
Okay.
sports is obviously as I engage in combat sports and training regularly, it's my main area of focus.
Okay.
But I see everything. Other areas that I'm really interested in are gut health, which is huge at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything from diabetes to metabolic health
Okay.
and everything
Cool.
in between.
Well, let's start with sports because that's one that particularly interests me. As
Hmm.
I sometimes I refer to myself as an athlete, which still is weird to me because I'm still like a sickly little asthma kid, with which I was growing up in my
Hmm.
head. But the fact that I do athletic things is still weird to me. But as an athlete and as someone that works with athletes and is surrounded by athletes, I'm always, attempting to understand how to optimize how to optimize various aspects of what it means to be able to succeed as an athlete, right? And nutrition and bodily function is a huge part of it. And I have some understanding of that, but I'm kind of curious. Combat sports, are there other kinds of athletes that come to you, and um, does how you would guide someone from a dietary perspective differ based on the sport that they're in?
Yeah, definitely yes. So in Australia, as you know, footy is really big, and team sports in
That
general.
that's rugby, right?
Yeah, correct. For me, football coming from South America is soccer, but
Soccer, and as an American here, it's something entirely different.
correct.
We
Um,
have our American football.
yep, with all the gear.
Yeah, all the gear.
Yeah. So team sports are huge here. I do see quite a bit of people who are engaged in team sports, and for them it's a tricky one because, as you know, team sports is a combination of a little bit of cardiovascular with power with
Mm-hmm.
strength as well. Especially in rugby, you need to be strong to be able to take on the tackles and all of that. You need to be fast as a
Yeah.
sprinter. You need to be able to withstand your cardiovascular endurance as well. So it is a combination of everything, and that is why it makes it so tricky with team sports. And then when you're dealing with endurance sports, for example, it's a completely different ballpark where you want to optimize carbohydrate intake, basically, if,
Okay,
if,
right.
if we're talking about performance.
Yeah.
Um, so everything is different, and people tend to think that because athlete X doing sport Y does this thing, everyone else should be doing the same thing,
Right.
but it's quite individual.
Yeah. 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 Very individual.
Mm.
I mean, I would assume there are common denominators, like you said. If it's an endurance sport, then probably more carbohydrate focus.
Hmm.
So there's probably like a general set of things, but then from there, you really have to cater it to the individual,
Yeah.
their unique needs, their unique restrictions, and all that. And yeah, the nutrition side is interesting to me from this perspective because I have a pretty fair understanding of the training side, the physical training side. So if depending on the different types of sports or athleticism required to engage in the sport, like okay, there's very specific types of training that you should do from a fitness perspective, from an athletic perspective. But the dietary perspective is that's well outside my realm of expertise. I have a certification in nutrition coaching, which is very, very, very high level, and it does not get into any nuances like what you're talking about, right? It's
Hmm.
it's it's very general nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've learned a lot more about nutrition outside of that certification, but yeah, nothing like what you're talking about. So for someone that is okay, so footy, or, you know, just something like even like basketball, right? Where it's like short bursts of intense movement. Is there like a general type of, like, I guess, macronutrient like
Yep. So
arrangement?
similar to what happens in endurance, you want to preload them pre-game with
Okay.
carbohydrate so that
Okay.
they have a good supply of glycogen during
Okay.
the sport, because as you know, like they have very limited opportunities to go and eat something or drink
Right.
something with
Yep.
carbohydrate in it.
Yep.
And it all depends also on how intensely and how much they're actually running. If they're going to be sitting on a bench, obviously, they
Yeah.
don't actually need much.
Yep.
But these days with GPS data, there's amazing things that you can do, but to determine how much roughly that particular athlete, will need in their game during the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to preload them ideally one day before the game with higher carbohydrate than usual. There
Okay.
is a range which is broad, and it all depends on how much carbohydrate the athlete eats on a daily basis. So
Okay.
you want to overshoot that amount basically, so they hold on to like glycogen and they can use it as fuel during the game.
Yeah.
And then there are things that you can do during the game as well. You can do a little bit of sports drinks or gels, just to top up in case
Yep.
they're gassing out. But
Right.
having said that, so athletes differ a lot. And even
Right.
if they didn't preload with glycogen, they can be able to perform at the highest level without the need to consume extra carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
So the moral of the story for everyone is they need to try it first
Yeah.
before going into a game, because there's
Mm.
no way you can find out what's going to work for
Yeah.
you in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. It could be bad news.
Yeah. Could be a trip to the toilet,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
not
Or,
ideal.
or many trips to the toilet.
Yeah. Hmm.
There's a lot of stigma around carbohydrates, so it sounds
Hmm.
like carbohydrates are not evil.
Hmm. True. And well, that stigma is well founded, because you don't need to carb load if you're sitting at your desk 8 hours a day, and then
I feel
driving
like you're
home.
attacking me personally right now.
No, from what I've seen out of your daily life, you're pretty active
I try.
for the average population. But if someone is not moving much, their idea of exercise is going to a Pilates class once a week, and then they are driving to work and driving to shops and driving to school to drop the kids, etc. They
Yep.
have not very much activity. Then yeah, they don't need that many carbohydrates. And yeah, it is possible that loading their body with that many carbohydrates will potentially affect their liver and their ability
Mm.
to metabolize glucose and all of that.
Yep.
But if you're talking about a high level athlete who's training twice a day, 6 days a week, and then competing at the highest level, they absolutely would benefit. They can do it without, but you potentially can compromise their ability to perform, their ability to recover, to maintain their immune system in top shape, and all of that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's an interesting distinction, and I appreciate that, because a lot of my listeners are it's like busy working professionals, right? So these are
Hmm.
people that, without intention, could easily spend 90% of their day sitting down or laying down,
Hmm.
right? Between sitting and sleeping, they're really, the only time they're on their feet is when they're walking from their chair to the next place they're going to sit down, whether it's
Yeah.
their car or the toilet or the couch or whatever. So that's an excellent point for folks that fall within that category, right? So we live in a world where carbohydrates are everywhere, and they're put in front of us in a way that's very attractive. I mean, fruit is an easy one, and fruit is delicious and fruit's wonderful, but then there's all of just like the snacks and practically everything you find in the supermarket has sugar in it. Even if it's, you think you're just getting protein, look at the carbohydrate numbers on it. There's probably a fair bit of things in there that would add kind of hidden carbohydrates as well. So yeah, we live kind of inundated with carbohydrates. So unless you're using those in a productive way, then you're taking them in an unproductive way.
Yeah, correct. And not also speaking about people who rely on eating out all the time. Obviously, in a restaurant, they're going to load you with carbohydrates because it's the cheapest ingredient that they
Yep.
can add to the meal. So it's going to be a huge amount of rice or pasta or whatever, and then a little bit of protein and pretty much zero vegetables, which is quite the opposite to what you
Yeah.
want. Mm-hmm.
And I had read that certain types of carbohydrates actually stimulate you to be more hungry. So that's why a lot of restaurants will put like bread out on the table before you even order your food, because it actually makes you hungrier when you start getting those carbohydrates.
So this is what is called the glycemic index of foods,
Mm-hmm.
which means how quickly a carbohydrate-containing food will rise your blood sugar, and then it drops quickly. So that drop is what makes you hungry. And this is why sometimes you might be hungry, eat an apple, and then you're hungry again in half an hour, 1 hour.
Yeah.
However, if you add an apple with some peanut butter or something, the sugar will be slowly released into your bloodstream and will keep you fuller for a little longer. So if you're eating
Okay.
a huge bowl of white rice with nothing, then you'll get that effect of making you hungry in a little while.
Yeah.
Whereas if you eat a mixed meal with protein and fat and fiber, etc., that effect will be blunted.
Yeah. And I think it's even more prominent in ultra processed foods. Like you eat
Mhm.
a big bag of chips or something, you might have just put down 600 calories of junk and you feel terrible, but you're still hungry and you still want more food.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people tend to think that that's the cheapest option, but in the end, if you really check how much money you're spending on ultra processed foods, you're probably spending more because you need to eat more of it to
Yeah.
be satisfied.
Yep.
Hmm.
And that's more calories, and that's you're just contributing to an unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with consuming those foods on an occasional basis, but
Mm-hmm.
what most people think I eat them once in a while is actually like 3 times a week or more, and
Yeah.
that's the problem. It's not consuming them once in a while. It's when it becomes part of your regular routine.
Yep. Yep. And so we've firmly established that you work with athletes. You work with just regular folks as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Everything from everything really, like older adults as well who
Mm-hmm.
are in aged care facilities and things like that, to everyday people like you and
Yeah.
me. Hmm.
So for everyday people like you and me, is there sort of like a general reason that people would come to you, like weight loss or managing some sort of chronic condition like diabetes or something?
Weight loss is a very common presentation,
Okay.
and new diagnosis of either pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, that type of thing is
Okay.
very common as well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So question for you then. So particularly when it comes to weight loss, because that's a big one, right? And that's kind of how I sort of ended up in this world of wellness, because I was teaching Krav, and then students started coming to me being like, well, you run workouts in class sometimes, so can you just, be my personal trainer? So then I learned how to become a personal trainer and started doing that. People would come to me because they wanted to lose weight. And then I went down that rabbit hole, and I'm like, oh, it's not just about fitness. It's hugely about nutrition and lifestyle. And so then I just kind of like segued into wellness. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about fat, like body fat out there, and where it comes from and how it's stored and how it comes and goes. So I'm curious about what are some common mistakes that you see people coming from a nutritional perspective, that you see people making when they first come to you that you have to correct when it comes to weight loss in particular?
Most people think that they need to eat close to nothing in order to lose weight.
I was wondering if you were going to
Uh,
say that.
yep.
Yeah.
Very, very common. So people are eating anything from 1,000 calories to 1,200, and weighing 120 kilos and expecting to lose weight.
Yeah.
And the composition of those calories is also a problem because they think a sandwich with just lettuce and tomato and cucumber is ideal because it has very
Yeah.
little calories.
So
Or,
healthy.
yes, a healthy. Or biscuits, just biscuits. So, yeah. And it's crazy. Like, even medical professionals still have that mentality.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of doctors on this show, and actually, my eyes were kind of first open to this when I had a couple of clients that were doctors that were coming to me for some fitness and weight loss stuff, and I would talk to them about lifestyle and nutrition, and I'd kind of lead with, "Well, you probably already know this, right? They went to 8 years of medical school or whatever," and they're like, "No, I don't really know anything about that," or yeah, maybe I covered that like in a paragraph in a book at some point, but didn't really learn about it. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that many medical professionals, one, don't know about this stuff, and two, probably need to be coached on it and probably need to go see you to fix their own lives from a nutritional perspective.
Yeah, yeah. And like, to be fair, the environment doesn't make it easy. So like there is convenient foods everywhere, and you have to make a conscious
Yeah.
choice to do something different than the status quo. And I work in medical centers, and you can
Oh
imagine
yeah.
the spread of like biscuits and cake and all of that is available there. So
Yep.
it's not easy if you haven't made that change that
Right.
in your switch in your
Yep.
brain that says I'm not the type of person who does that type of thing.
It's kind of funny. I just did a social media post on Instagram a couple days ago. So my wife's been out of town all week. She actually just got back a few hours ago. So happy. But so I've been managing the kids, which is fine. They're generally pretty well behaved. But one of them's been sick, and
Mm.
so he's been quite a handful. I've had to take half the week off of work, and he's just been miserable. And when a little kid's miserable, they kind of make everyone around them miserable too.
Mm.
So the other night after I got the kids to bed, I stress ate, which is not something that I really ever do. Usually, I'm done eating by 7:30, and that's that. And yeah, I finally got the kids to bed, and I was like, I'm gonna watch TV and I'm gonna eat something, which is not part of my evening routine. I don't watch TV in the evening, and I don't eat. But I did. But to your point, because I've already made a lifestyle change around nutrition, I don't have junk food in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So, my stress eating was I had some grapes and a little bit of popcorn with ghee on it, and like some 85% dark chocolate that's stevia sweetened. So that was my naughty late night,
Your cheat meal.
yeah, my cheat meal. So it was, and then kind of to the other thing you said, a calorie is not a calorie, right? I mean, it's not, calories are not all created equal. So I might have just had 300 calories of chocolate, grapes, and popcorn, but that is definitely not going to have the same effect on my body as if I just had 300 calories of ice cream.
Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's one big one is people are under eating, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's the old calories in, calories out thing. They think all I need to do is be in a caloric deficit and I'm going to lose weight. And,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's true for a little while, but that becomes very unhealthy and unsustainable. So how do you correct that in people? I mean, you can't just say eat more, right? You have to do it in a way that's going to work for them and create
Yeah.
something sustainable.
Yeah. So I prefer to emphasize not counting calories, but making sure that they are covering their bases when it comes to protein and non-starchy vegetables, uh, especially at lunch and dinner, because a lot of people tend to eat a normal dinner with some vegetables and some protein and some carbohydrates because they are with family, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But lunches are hit and miss. oftentimes. So a lot of
Yep.
people grab a sandwich that has one slice of cheese and maybe a sad slice of tomato or something like that, and that's it. And then breakfasts are either coffee or cereal or a couple of Weet-Bix or something like that.
Yeah.
So protein and vegetables are the things that I like to emphasize for lunch and dinner. And if I can convince the person to have a savory breakfast where they can have protein and vegetables as well, that's the big win for me.
Okay.
Because that signals satiety throughout the
Yeah.
day. That makes sure that they're covering in their bases when it comes to vegetables as well. It's really hard to try to put up enough vegetables in one meal or two meals. If you spread that out in 3 meals, say, it's way easier. Now, if you look at my food photos, I can pile vegetables a lot,
Yeah.
but most people don't. So,
Right.
mhm.
So for like an average person, what kind of vegetables would they be okay with eating at like breakfast time?
Spinach, mushrooms, tomatoes.
Okay.
So think about like eggs, poached eggs, scrambled eggs, and the typical
Hmm.
vegetables that go with them, or
Yeah.
avocado or something like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could eat avocado with every meal,
yeah, me too.
except it's so darn expensive in Australia.
Nowadays are a
Is
little
it
cheaper.
better?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is better.
Man, when I lived there, it was like $5 an avocado or something. It
Yeah,
was nuts.
yeah. There are times during the year that we go to those prices, but
Yeah.
right now they're about $2 per avocado. But still much more expensive and not as nice as in South America. So.
Oh yeah, I bet. I bet. I am. I'm very lucky. My neighbors that live behind me have a massive avocado tree, and it hangs over the fence.
Amazing.
And so my mother-in-law got me a fruit picker, this thing bears fruit for like 6 months a year. So half a year I get free avocados.
Amazing.
Although we're moving, so I am not going to get free avocados anymore. I'm very sad about that.
Where are you moving to? Same state?
Uh, yeah. So we're in Southern California right now. We're just moving to Northern California.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Gonna get some cleaner air. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, similar to you, going from kind of a hot spot out to a little bit of a remote area out there in the Australian Capital Territory where I am going to be is about an hour and a half north of San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
kind of out in wine country. So not a lot going on out in that area either,
Mm-hmm.
which
Nice.
personally I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Are you still going to continue teaching and all of that?
Well, that I'm not sure about. So there's not really Krav Maga in that area. So you never know. I mean, I might find like an MMA gym to just get back into some jujitsu and some kickboxing. And then if they want to introduce a Krav Maga class, maybe I'll do that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we'll see. To be determined.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I'll just be the periodic drop-in instructor here at the studio where I live now when I'm back in town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So people going into a caloric deficit when they shouldn't be and causing some damage that way. What else? What are some other common mistakes people make when they're trying to lose weight, just kind of figuring it out on their own?
Going too low in protein.
Okay.
That's very common as well. People tend to think that they shouldn't be eating protein because meat and chicken and eggs and things like that are bad for you. That's like
Mm-hmm.
a common misconception.
Yeah.
And also don't really knowing how much protein there is in foods. Yeah,
Yeah.
not knowing that one egg has maximum 6 or 7 grams of protein, not enough for a meal, for
Right.
example. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And I kind of do minimal nutrition stuff with my clients, but that's one that I do focus on because, we're trying to build muscle. So
Mm-hmm.
I also am not into having people track their calories and track all of their macros because, as a trainer, I want to see it all. It's very, very interesting and enlightening to me to see it, but people just hate doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really turns them off after a while. So I generally have people track their protein and we kind of leave the rest to more like portion size.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So tracking, I find, can be useful for some people who, after I see them for the first time, if I determine that they are actually overeating and that's a problem, and they're overeating on things because they're snacking all day, for example, then tracking can be useful because it's an eye opener.
Oh,
Number
for
one,
sure.
so you can see what you're actually doing and not what you think you're doing once in a while.
Hmm.
Number two, it's as you said, it's a pain in the butt. So tracking is so hard and so difficult to keep up, then people tend to moderate their behavior so they don't have to be logging every single thing they eat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is a useful tool.
It is. And funny you say that. So I love and hate it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to do it because I'm always very interested to see where I'm at
Mm-hmm.
because I usually think I know where I am. And despite all of the times that I've tracked and how much I pay attention to what I'm eating, I'm still usually off.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm like guessing how many calories did I eat today or how much protein did I get, my numbers are never like the numbers I come up with in my head are never what I have in the app when I actually start to log my food. So it's always very interesting to me, but it also is a pain. And so
Mm-hmm.
usually like I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start tracking again. Then I do it for maybe a week and then like I just stop because like I ate a bunch of stuff that I didn't log and then I moved on and then I ate the next meal and didn't log that. And I'm like, it's too late. I don't want to go back and try to remember all the 6 things that I ate and my portions. And all right, I'm just going to do it tomorrow. And then it never happens anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do macro tracking cycling if that's a thing. Like probably every couple of months I'll track for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I highly recommend anyone that has never tracked their macros to do it just because it is really interesting. And,
Yeah.
I would say do it accepting that you're only going to do it for maybe a week
Mm-hmm.
because most people hate it and they don't want to keep doing it and they get annoyed by it. So, commit
And
to it for a,
it can be a problem for some people too. It can trigger a really unhealthy behavior later on,
mhm.
which is something that you don't want. So if I recommend someone to start tracking their intake, is because I have determined that they are not at risk of falling into a bad pattern with food. Um,
And like what kind of bad patterns have you seen from people kind of obsessing over those numbers?
well, eating disorders.
Okay.
Uh, Disorder eating and eating disorders are things that exist in a spectrum.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
disorder eating is when you start um, expressing behaviors of caring too much about what you put in your body,
Okay. Yeah.
and it can go all the way to the eating disorder, which is the thing that has a diagnosis. So
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
anorexia, bulimia,
Sure.
etc., binge eating, etc.
Yeah.
So if I see that a person either has a history or has some level of anxiety that can spiral into some of those behaviors, then I do not recommend tracking.
That
Yeah.
is 100% fair.
Mhm.
So for people outside of that, I definitely recommend everyone else give it a try just because it is very interesting.
Yeah.
If you think you know what your numbers are or have some idea, try tracking for a few days and see how close you are and kind of where your opportunities are.
Hmm.
Um, what do you think of people following different, like, I don't want to say diet trends, but just different diets that exist? Like, there's paleo and keto and carnivore and vegan and, all these different things. Like, honestly, most people pick up a diet because they're like, it's going to make me either feel better or it's going to make me skinnier. Um, but obviously, the way that you eat really depends on your own physiology. But I'm just curious, like, what do you are there any of those that you're like, yeah, they're good for this in particular, or is there any are there any like diet like fad diets out there that you actually would support in certain situations?
I would say that again, as you well said just now, it depends on the person, and things that tend to work for a person are things that one address their biochemical makeup. And by that I mean, for example, a person goes into carnivore and they find that they'll feel amazing, and it's probably because they have some issues digesting plant foods, for
Okay.
example. Yeah. Or the opposite. A person goes vegan and they feel amazing, maybe because they lack some enzymes that allow them to digest meat, for example. So
Yeah.
if that's the case and they feel good with that um, style of eating, let's say, then absolutely they should try to eat as close as possible to what makes their health um, thrive. Now the problem is that they need to pay attention at what they're eating, because you can be vegan and survive on potato chips and coke,
Yeah.
or you can be vegan and have a wide variety of plant foods, for example.
I remember first observing that when I started doing Muay Thai when I was 25, and that was really when I first got into like figuring out what it meant to eat healthy, because I wanted to eat in a way that sustained my performance in the Muay Thai classes. And I remember seeing a couple of vegan um, classmates in there, and they were both overweight, and it kind of blew my mind. I didn't realize that you could like be vegan and be overweight. Like to me, vegan it was like the epitome of healthy, but you could be vegan and live on, yeah, like you said, on potato chips. So yeah, it
I, I,
doesn't mean
I
healthy at all.
I think Oreos are vegan too.
Yeah, I believe you're correct.
So yeah, so it all depends on how you do it. I don't tell people you shouldn't be doing this diet, because people are entitled to choose whether they want to eat.
Yep.
I try to work with whatever they have going on, trying to veer towards more whole foods rather than processed foods. So that's my bias, if you want to put it that way, is
Yeah.
do whatever you feel better with, as long as you are, one, trying to source your nutrition from mostly whole foods.
Yeah.
Number two, if you have any deficiencies and you are not addressing those, then you need to. So we all know that relying on supplements is not ideal, but if you are determined in not eating certain foods that contain that nutrient, then you need to supplement. That's a
Yeah.
non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you put much attention on anti-nutrients like phytates or oxalates or lectins, anything like that?
Uh, so I don't think they are evil. They're there for a reason.
Right.
They do serve a function, I think, a little bit of hormesis there,
Okay.
and in a context of a mixed diet, which most people have, I think they serve a purpose also of preventing toxicity, because if you eat
Okay.
too much of some things, those things that bind to metals, for example, can be
Yep.
useful. So I think if you're basing your diet in whole foods and not isolated foods, every component, good in quotation marks or bad in quotation marks, everything works in concert in order to provide a set of nutritional tools for your body to thrive. The
Yeah.
problem is when we start isolating things,
Hmm.
and then that's where you can go over or under in ways that are not beneficial.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to anti-nutrients, for example, things that bind to minerals
Hmm.
are, for example, if you were vegan and you're relying on beans to provide your iron intake, then the anti-nutrients will mean that your body is less able to absorb that iron from plant foods.
Yeah.
So there are things that you can do about that. So anti-nutrients are not there, are not um, set in stone, so to speak. They can be broken down by processing, by cooking, etc.
Right. Right.
So
Right. Soaking, sprouting,
yeah,
processing,
correct. And
steaming.
exactly. And ancient people knew. I don't know how they know, but
Yeah. Right. How did
yeah,
they know?
exactly.
How did
How
they
do they
know?
know that they had to process things in a particular way to make it
Right.
nutritious? I have no idea, but they know.
Yeah.
uh,
I
so
reckon in Peruvian culture, you would find a lot of that kind of ancient knowledge of how to prepare plant foods
Yep.
probably
Yeah.
still exists.
Yeah. For example, simple example that people are familiar with these days, quinoa, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh, White people will buy quinoa in a bag and cook it straight away. Our people know that you have to rinse the quinoa very, very well before cooking it because otherwise you have all the saponins on top of the grains. And
Okay.
yeah, so,
Okay.
or cassava, for example. I have a friend who had an allergic reaction to cassava chips because those chips are made by slicing the cassava and frying them.
Okay.
We know that you have to cook them first in water and discard the water because otherwise
Mm,
you get cyanide.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Don't kill yourself with your cassava chips, folks.
exactly.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that you say that, like you can still have these different things, as long as you're smart about it. Because when I first learned about anti-nutrients 3 or 4 years ago, I just kind of went down this rabbit hole of like all of the bad things about them, and like it really turned me off of plant food for a bit. But it's like you really I don't I have no interest in being carnivore either, like all carnivore. So I kind of had to like come back around and be like, okay, I just need to understand this stuff so that I know how to eat it intelligently.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with meat. So people would say don't eat meat because it'll produce all these carcinogens in your body, etc., which is true. But that is why eating a wide variety of foods is your best bet because you're having, yeah, potentially some carcinogens here or there, but you're also having antioxidants from other foods,
Yeah.
and you're balancing things out,
Yeah.
in a way.
Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about gut health.
Hmm.
So I guess talking about anti-nutrients kind of like ties into gut health, but
Hmm.
let's separate that out. So I guess, can you just explain, like, what does gut health even mean?
That's a very good question, $1 million question there. So ideally, you want your gut to be functioning optimally, in the sense that you want your digestive system to work well, but gut health is much more than that because, as we know now, the gut microbiome plays an important role in every single aspect of health.
Yep.
So, in reality, gut health is whole body health and mental health as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is really hard to pinpoint what is caused by a poor gut health or not, but chances are that if you have something wrong in your overall health, there might be something wrong in your gut health.
Okay. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot about oral health as well, and I've been trying to
Mm.
get a holistic dentist on the show because I want to talk about that too. But yeah, gut health is a big one. So obviously, there's nutrition plays heavily into gut health, but what else? What else, like, that we would have some control over would
Stress
uh
is a big one.
stress?
So
Okay.
yeah, everyone knows if you get nervous or whatever, you feel butterflies in your stomach, and this is not a something made up by Hollywood or anything. It's real. Yeah.
Yep.
You might even like experience diarrhea or something like that if you get really nervous because everything's connected. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a strong link between your brain and your gut. And people who experience IBS, for example, irritable bowel syndrome, tend to have high levels of stress, or their symptoms start with a stressful event in their lives. So, an accident or personal stress, divorce, or something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. You got some stress, and all of a sudden you got indigestion, or you feel like
Yeah.
you're going to throw up.
Correct.
Funny you mentioned that too. I think back, and I've gone to quite a few different martial arts schools and Krav Maga schools, and I've dropped in on quite a few during my travels. But despite the fact that I'm very excited to do it, very comfortable doing it, almost every time I go to a new school for the first time, as soon as I get there, I feel like I have to have a bowel movement, and it's very annoying. It's very annoying.
Yep, that's your gut-brain
Yeah.
connection. That's right there.
So I always have to, plan ahead for that. Like, all
Yeah.
right, Get there 5 minutes early. What else? What about environmental? Does our environment tie into our gut health?
Yeah, I think it does, but it does. I think it's a lower factor if
Okay.
you wish in the level of priorities of things that can have an effect.
Hmm.
Environment can, again, it is quite like a blurry distinction between, is environment causing stress in a way, like even physical stress via whatever plastics or BPA or things like that, or
Yeah.
extra noise or pollution or things like that. Is it the environment itself, or is it some sort of stress that is producing in the body?
Okay.
So
Right.
I think that's where the lines get a little blurry in between those
Yeah.
two.
It's interesting. So I have this 10-week wellness transformation program that I run my clients through, and it's it's just things like, moving more, getting more sunshine, stretching, getting cold, getting hot, doing breath work, doing some gratitude, eating with more intention, getting a small amount of exercise. It's a bunch of little things like that when compound, just create this amazing sort of realm of wellness that people can move into from living like a normal Western life where they're kind of removed from all of those things. And, you talk about gut health and stress's impact on it. What's always been so interesting to me when I have clients go through this transformation program is, usually, again, people come to me, they're like, I want to lose weight. I'm like, cool, we're going to fix everything. And you'll probably lose weight in the process, but we're going to fix everything. And so I just have them, drinking more water and sleeping better and getting sunshine and walking and not spending all day sitting down. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I have more energy all day. Oh, I'm thinking more clearly. Oh, I have my mental health is better. I'm happier. And oh, some of my GI problems went away. Like I don't have, like, my IBS isn't bothering me anymore, or my indigestion. And what you're saying makes sense, right? You kind of, you take away some of the things that would cause them to be in sort of a constant state of low level stress. And then the impacts that's creating, in this case on gut health, also tend to self correct.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty
Very
cool.
common. Mhm.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
But when people are fixated on the weight and they just want the magical meal plan that will make them lose weight without changing anything, that's when people run into trouble.
Yeah. So from a nutritional perspective, when it comes to gut health,
Mhm.
do you find that people, obviously ultra processed food, never good. But everyone has sort of their own unique dietary interactions. So do you find that you have to kind of drill down with people to like what's unique to them to be able to work on their gut health?
Yeah, so a lot of people these days are sensitive to some things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Very common lactose, just because we lose the ability to digest lactose as we get older. Most of us do,
Mm-hmm.
um, and more common these days is also the FODMAPs. So things like onions and garlic and cauliflower, cabbage, all the gassy foods.
Yeah, yeah.
So with that, as you know, Monash Uni here in Melbourne has a protocol of elimination of FODMAPs, and then you reintroduce just to find out what's the tolerance for that person. Because obviously, all those foods that go out of their diet for a little bit just to see which ones are causing a problem are healthy foods otherwise.
Right.
Avocados, asparagus, and apples, and things like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people go through this exercise because it is very common for people to report issues with all those things. Also beans, lentils, things that are otherwise healthy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I did some labs a few years back where it tests your kind of food sensitivities and all that. And it's pretty robust. It gave me a pretty like extensive list of foods, my superfoods, so foods that are particularly good for my gut microbiome, foods that are good for it, and then foods to minimize and foods to avoid completely. And it was it was kind of disheartening to see like all the things that I should avoid or minimize, because a lot of it's like egg yolks was on there. Like I love egg yolks.
So those tests can be a little tricky. So it depends
Hmm.
on what they're testing, if they're testing IgA or IgE or whatever. It is not, you should not take them as gospel. You
Well,
should,
I still eat egg yolks, so
yeah, good, because they're super nutritious. Yeah, so I take those tests with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, if you eat egg yolks and you don't have any reaction, there's no reason for you to avoid them just because a test that is not necessarily super accurate told you so.
yeah, I'm always curious about that, and I know that some people have like very traceable sensitivities, kind of like you were saying. You eliminate a bunch of stuff, they feel great, and then you start to introduce things back and see when they start to feel bad again.
Hmm.
Um, and I've done that with very specific things like gluten. Like I know that like if I go off of gluten for a while and then go back on gluten, it gives me problems. Like
Hmm.
it's very obvious to me that that's a thing.
Hmm.
Um, but I haven't really like done that extensively with anything else. And
Hmm.
so I'm always kind of curious. Like I know that I after having certain types of meals, I feel bloated, but I haven't really made the effort to like be like, okay, I'm gonna dissect that and then scale back on certain things for a while and then bring it back and see what happens. So I'm I'm kind of curious now because you mentioned like the FODMAP thing, where there's like specific types of food that would do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, how do you kind of work that with people? Like how do you figure out what to take them off of, um,
Well, if follow,
and then bring back?
yeah, so following the protocol, it's pretty. Uh, it's a standard set of things that are eliminated in the first
Okay.
few weeks, which are the foods that are high in FODMAPs, which are a lot. So we only do that if, number one, going back to the eating disorders, disorder eating spectrum, if that person is on that spectrum or at risk, we do not do this.
Okay.
If the person is a teenager or pregnant or something like that, we do not do this
Yeah.
as well, because otherwise it's too much risk. Or if they're like an older person who's at risk of malnutrition or something like that, it's not worth it really. But otherwise, if it's a person who is healthy, etc., then there's a set things that are eliminated until they feel better. Usually it takes about 4 6 weeks. If they don't feel better, then we need to see what's going on, because it can be something else.
Yeah.
But in general, so if the person tells you, I don't eat onions and cauliflower and this and that because it makes me gassy or gives me diarrhea or whatever, then you know that that's a candidate to do the elimination process.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Makes sense.
Hmm.
I know there's a common myth that gluten free means healthy. Gluten free absolutely does not mean healthy, because you can have ice cream is gluten free. But but there's a lot of folks out there with gluten sensitivities like myself, and it's quite obvious. I know, like in my family, we definitely many of us have that. Even my wife didn't think she did until she worked with a nutritionist and was told to go off of gluten, and then when she went back on it, she was like, "Oh yeah, I feel terrible."
Hmm.
Um, Curious how much of that do you see? Like, so I know it's pretty prevalent here in the United States. I have no idea how that is in Australia. I know that like in Europe, it's not really as much of a thing because I guess just the wheat that they have there is better.
Hmm. It is fairly common. I wouldn't say it's the majority of people I see, but it is fairly common. Now,
Okay.
I don't know how much you know about this, but gluten-containing foods are actually high in FODMAPs. So in some cases, it can
Hmm.
be, yeah. So it is just because of the composition of wheat and barley and all of that, those grains, there can be a confounding factor there. So it could be the carbohydrate component of the gluten-containing food, or it
Okay.
could be the gluten, which is a protein. So it at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's a gluten-containing foods that don't work for the person, but it's
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a gluten sensitivity. It could be the sensitivity to the carbohydrate component of the
Okay.
gluten-containing foods.
And I know that the FODMAPs, that's short chain carbohydrates. And I can't remember what it stands for. It's a bunch of
It's
words, bunch of
fermented.
long words.
Yeah, yeah, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter.
Do you know? Can you recite it?
Fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols.
Okay. Right on. You got it. You got it. Um, yeah.
So
So,
sugar alcohols are within the FODMAPs as well. So if you're chewing a lot of like sugar-free gum or drinking a lot of things sweetened with xylitol and this and that, you could be having issues as well. So
interesting.
again, something that could be healthy in quotation marks for someone who's looking to lose weight and they're doing the right thing to having by having the diet whatever,
Yeah.
um, they can be getting into trouble just because those things don't work for them. So this is why like doing a detailed diet history of what the person eats on a regular basis is so important because otherwise you have no idea what can be the issue with them.
Okay. That's really interesting. I never realized that sugar alcohols fell within that category.
Hmm.
Oh, that opens a whole different can of worms, but I'm not gonna go down that can right now. All right, here's a question that I've been dying to ask you, and this question is for me and anyone else that has or is ever planning to attend one of Ron Engelman's courses. So Ron, this is for you also. What do you do for yourself, or what would you advise someone to do that's about to embark on a 7-day, 8-ish hours per day athletic journey? So for us, it's the Krav Maga. It could be, some sort of like maybe a Muay Thai camp in Thailand or something. Like, what do you do for yourself, and is that what you would advise other people to do?
We're talking nutrition wise or in
Yeah,
general?
nutrition wise.
Okay. So number one, be sure that you're not trying anything that you have not tried before. So not because you know that you'll be training every day for 6 hours a day, you decide I'm going to do 8 to 12 grams of carbohydrate like the endurance athletes do, and you've never tried that before, and then you go there and you have a massive case of diarrhea, for example. So
Yeah.
if you're planning to go, say, from here in 4 months or something, try it out before you go. Ideally, in a similar scenario. So in a you don't need to train for the whole 6 hours, but in a really intense type of scenario, so you know what works for you and what doesn't. That's critical. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, try to be as healthy as you can. So try to be as clean in quotation marks as you can.
No ultra processed crap, or
Yep,
less ultra processed crap anyway.
less macas and all of that because otherwise you
That's
won't. Yeah.
that's McDonald's for us Americans, or
Yes.
Mickey D's as we say, Macca's.
Because otherwise your body will not be in optimal shape
Yeah.
going there. The other thing is research. So if you have a gluten sensitivity, for example, you need to research to see what's available in your destination.
Mm, okay.
Um, these days it's really easy to find out gluten-free foods, lactose-free foods,
Yeah.
dairy-free foods, etc. But you need to research to be able to know which restaurants you can hit once you're there, where are the nearest supermarkets. Google Translator, if you're traveling to Israel, is a lifesaver because you just hover over the camera, over the packages, and you know what's in there. And you know
I
if
know
you're
the world
buying,
we live in. It's amazing.
it
It's
is
amazing.
amazing.
I used to spend a lot of time in Japan before Google Translate was a thing, or just global wireless data, and yeah, I would just have to guess.
Look at the pictures
Look at
and
the
take a guess.
picture. Like, what is this? I don't know, but
Like
it looks all right.
when we were in Japan, we were looking at food items in 7-Eleven or whatever. My husband was trying to guess from the pictures, and I was like,
Yeah.
the label is in English. What are you doing?
He was trying to make more of an experience out of it.
Yeah, but yeah, so Google Translate is vital and to be able to shop for yourself, because you don't want to be eating all your meals in a restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
Especially in Israel, tends to be expensive, and also uh,
It's very expensive. I was blown away by how expensive it is in Tel Aviv.
yeah, almost as expensive as Sydney,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
So you want to, for example, buy stuff that you can have for breakfast in your accommodation, and then the lunches can be had usually with the group in between sessions, and then dinners, people usually get together to have dinner. So if at the very least you buy your breakfast foods, you know that you're getting a solid, really good meal, but
Yep.
you need to know what you're buying. So
Yeah.
essential for that. And then embracing the culture, it's another big one. Eat what the locals eat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make having the opportunity to travel to Israel is amazing, because you get to know a culture that is completely different to yours and mine. And why not embrace the culture and try the foods?
So eat a lot of hummus.
Yeah, hummus and sabich and
Oh
what is
yeah.
it, shawarma and all of that.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
Uh-huh. Yep,
Yeah.
those are my basic tips. But sorry, the other thing is, if you do have requirements, such as, for example, if you have low iron or low vitamin D, etc., and you rely on vitamins and things like that, it's better to bring your own rather than trying to find things
Yeah.
overseas. If you normally take electrolytes when you sweat a lot, bring your own, just in case you don't find the same product that you're used to. If you use protein powders, everything that you tend to use as supplements or think you need, medicines, of course, bring with you, because otherwise it can be a nightmare not being able to find them overseas.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was at the recent one in Sydney last year, my breakfast was largely a banana and some Greek yogurt. I know there was more than that. Oh, eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Banana, Greek yogurt, and eggs. That was my breakfast pretty much every day. I
Yeah.
had my hotel room had a full kitchen, so I took advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was having just cheap sushi for lunch. I'd go to the supermarket and just grab some, a slice of fish on rice and eat a whole bunch of that. So I'm getting some protein and some carbs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's something that you would eat on a regular basis back home, right? It's not something that you have never tried before when
No,
training.
absolutely
Yeah.
not. I definitely don't eat sushi every day back home, although I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't afford it. But but I do eat plenty of sushi, and yes, I eat eggs every day, and I eat
Mm-hmm.
Greek yogurt every day, and I don't eat bananas every day. I don't eat a lot of fruit, particularly first thing in the morning. But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing. If you are going to engage on a intense training session, the last thing you want to do is to eat, I don't know, laxa before training. Yeah, something heavy, something that is going to sit in your stomach. So things that are easy to digest but nutritious at the same time
Yep.
are the best things to shoot for. Especially if you this is your first time going to Israel, you have no idea how intense will be the training session. I suggest you undershoot a little bit on the complexity of your meal. So try to keep
Mm,
it as simple as possible, easy to digest, etc. And then as day 3, 4, when you're a little bit more used to that, you can know if you can manage maybe some eggs and avocado and things like that, which
okay.
will be a little harder to digest for some people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, when I was in Sydney, I followed one of your rules and I broke one of them. So I immersed myself in the local culture. And, what is Australian culinary culture? Like, who could even say? But I ate a bunch of meat pies, but I also know that I'm gluten sensitive. So I, I broke a rule by eating a whole bunch of gluten, but I immersed myself in the culture of eating Aussie meat pies because I love them and I miss them.
Wait, did you eat them with beer as well to have the full Aussie experience or
I
not?
didn't. I didn't. I don't think I drank at all while I was there. I'm not much of a drinker anyway. I maybe have 2 beers a year,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely not when I'm training like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Although I think when I went to Israel, I did have a couple of beers because I just wanted
Yeah,
to try it.
that's the other thing. Some people go too hard on the alcohol
Oh
when
yeah, for
traveling,
sure.
and it's not ideal for recovery. If
Yeah.
you're 22 years old and you can get away with it, that's fine. But at our age, you have to be a little bit more sensible.
Just put some pre-workout and some essential amino acids in your beer, and it's good to go. When's your next course? When are you getting back?
September.
Are you?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Is that in Israel or is he coming back to Australia?
No, no, Australia. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Back in Sydney?
Hmm. Back in
Nice.
Sydney. We are currently training once a month, so we've made it a regular thing.
Oh, you're getting over to KMDI?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So it's nice and easy now that we can drive 3-4 hours and be
Yeah,
there.
I was trying to think, what was that, about 3 hours or so,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Mm.
Not bad. Well, I really wanted to get into a course this year, and he's going to be in Las Vegas next month,
Mm.
which is only a 4 hour drive from where I live. But because I'm moving the following month,
Oh.
I can't put aside the 7-8 days for it, and plus the financial commitment because we got a lot of expenses coming up. I'm totally bummed because that would have been such an easy one for me. I can
Yeah.
drive there and I know people to live there, so I probably would have found a place to crash.
Oh.
But my plan is to get over to Israel next year, so
Hmm.
hopefully I will do that.
Yeah, I would love to go too, but I don't know.
How many times have you done the Israel course?
I've done once the immersion camp,
Yeah.
and then the instructor course once as
Okay.
well. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of wanted to do the immersion camp just because I never did it. It looks fun, but I ended up at the instructor one
Yeah.
instead.
The instructor one is better because people are older, which means that you have to kill yourself with the young people
Yeah,
there.
I will say I was very happy at both of my instructor courses that I was with people that were like my age or older.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt very like yeah ready to match the energy level of the people around me.
Correct. You have to keep up with the youngsters.
Yeah, although Tomohiro, man, that guy, I think he said he was 45, and like I feel like he could just bounce around all day long. Like
Yeah, he's a
can't keep
weapon.
up with that guy.
Hmm.
Well, Gabby, this has been a super fun conversation. Anything else that you want to share, or any parting words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Um, well, some people, especially in Australia, I don't know how it is in America, but a lot of people tend to think that dietitians are evil because they're with the system and the government, and people still talk about the food pyramid in Australia, even though it hasn't existed for years and years and years.
The good old food pyramid that was
Yeah,
sponsored by like the processed food industry.
yeah. So, um, I want people to know that dietitians are not are not subsidized by the government, anything like that. That we are here to help you meet your goals in life, in health, in performance, and all of that. And we are not all married to stiff ideas from the past.
Yeah, yeah,
So just with any profession, you can find good professionals, bad professionals, and everything in between. Just find someone you can connect with, someone who is ready to help you meet your goals, and then everything will be easier and you can be healthier and perform better as well.
Yeah, well said. And I've had a chance to talk to quite a few dietitians through this show and just through my world of wellness coaching. And yeah, I would say generally they are people that do understand health and wellness, and generally they are not scary. In fact, the only dietitian I know that's scary is you, and that's just because you're a black belt. And I know that you can kick my ass. But besides that, I think as long as I don't try to choke you or something, that we would have a very good interaction with you as my dietitian.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not scary at all. Not on the mat, not in my office.
Okay, perfect. Well, folks, I will have show notes for you at the superhumanblueprintpodcast.com. So go check it out. As always, if you found this episode to be helpful, please be sure to share it with anyone that could use the information that we went over today. And make sure you like, subscribe, and help us get this episode and this show out to more people. Gaby, it's been really nice to see you again. Really nice to catch up. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much to you, and I hope to see you in person again very, very soon.
I hope so too. Take care. Bye.